Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
It's time for a fresh start to language learning. Pearson edXL's new student-centred French, German and Spanish 2024 GCSEs cater to the needs of all learners, regardless of their background, ability or reason for studying. Rooted in learned language knowledge, their assessments are transparent and accessible, allowing all students to showcase their language skills. Through inclusive and relatable content, the new Pearson edXL MFL GCSEs build a shared cultural capital that helps students develop an understanding of and appreciation for the wider world. Find out more at go.pearson.com/MFL GCSE 24.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio, The Late Show with Darren Lester and lots of wonderful guests who are going to be joining us very shortly. Just as a means of introduction, this show is the third in a series of shows with Pearson looking at the relevance of language learning, and today's show is going to be all about languages beyond the classroom. If you're interested in finding out more about Pearson MFL and their new GCSE curriculum and resources, then you are going to find out more during the course of this evening's wonderful show. I'm going to now pass over to Darren while I'm connecting up the various guests.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good evening, everybody. I am so excited to be back with you this evening to talk about the relevance of language learning outside of the classroom. This is one of my big passions. As much as I hate the word passion in education, I feel like it gets bandied round a lot. And as I've talked about before on the Saturday morning breakfast show, it quite often is used to justify our low pay and our sometimes quite poor working conditions because of the vocational aspect. For me, the point of teaching languages, the point of our students learning languages is so that they can use them outside of the classroom. I always say to my students, very few people take A-level Chinese, A-level French, A-level Latin, whatever it might be that I'm teaching at the time, in order to become a Chinese, French, Latin teacher. Quite often you take those subjects because you go on and do something different with them, either something in languages, a translator, a writer, whatever it may be, or another kind of enterprise, doctor, business person, paramedic. I don't know why I've got the medical field in my head today, but I have. And languages then work in conjunction with that to help you to reach more people. So for me, it's very much about how we get our students to appreciate that, how we get our students to understand that, and that we can get those who are not necessarily linguists, but understand the need to speak another language, to work alongside those students who are linguists, the ones who are like us and interested in how language works and why it works, and kind of how we can get the two to work together. So we have got some amazing hosts, some amazing guests, this evening. And as ever, I am hoping to not have to do too much talking, to allow all of my guests to talk and to educate me and us on all of the wonderful things that they do and that they suggest, both in and out of the classroom, to get our students on board. So what I'm going to do, because I feel like this has worked quite well in the past, is guests, if you are ready, I'm just going to kind of circle time style, go around and ask you to introduce yourselves. So, Rebecca, shall we start with you?
Hi, so I'm Rebecca Waker. I'm the subject advisor for languages at Pearson, and it basically means I'm the first port of contact for anybody wanting to ask questions about our languages qualifications. And I was a teacher myself until December of last year, so very fresh out of the classroom, although the last 7 months have kind of flown by.
Oh, I'm sure they have. I remember when you transitioned into Pearson, how exciting that was. Because, of course, you've been a big part of the MFL Twitterati for such a long time. And it was so exciting to see kind of one of our own transitioning into the big shoes of the exam board. So that was really cool. Congratulations on that. I don't remember whether I tweeted you. But it must be a really exciting transition for you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you. It's really nice of you to say. And yeah, it has. It's been great to move over and be supporting teachers on a daily basis in a different way to how I already was with things like Twitter and Teach Me icons and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's been a really good change.
Ah, that's awesome. That's awesome. For those of you who have been listening over the past couple of shows, Fiona needs no introduction, but just in case, Fiona, would you like to introduce yourself?
That's very kind, Darren. Thank you. Yes, I'm trying to think. I don't want to say all exactly the same things that I said in the last
It's really hard, isn't it?
session. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Fiona Price, and I joined Pearson last year. I'm part of the MFL product team, so we design the resources rather than the qualification. But obviously, we're working very closely with the new spec, and I'm leading on the Spanish resourcing, so getting all those digital and print resources ready. Exciting times for teachers so that they're ready for the 2024 exams. This is a topic very close to my heart because before I joined Pearson, I was a languages teacher for 23 years in secondaries mainly, but I did have a short stint, 5 or 6 years in primary schools as well, where I taught Spanish up to Key Stage 2, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. And I think the whole thing about languages beyond the classroom is just absolutely essential because you want that eureka moment when the penny drops. The more children that you can get to the target language country, just the better, really, because it's just such an incredible experience. That's how my love of languages began, with an exchange trip. And I've led
Oh,
yeah,
amazing.
I've led many, many, many exchanges as a head of department and as a normal teacher, a classroom teacher, to Germany and to Spain. And I think as well, I'm sure we'll touch on this, but also trying to think of cultural events, other ways you can hook kids in and take it beyond the classroom so that, like you say, it's so that they can see the power that languages have to transform your life, to give your life something more and enhance it, and other cultures. And obviously the dream is to get them to the country. But there are other ways as well. And it's something I'm massively passionate about, and supporting teachers to be able to do that. And that's obviously a big part of our resources, that even if you can't get your kids to the target language country, we want the book to bring that rich culture really to life in the classroom. But it starts with that, and then you want to take it beyond that and get them mad about Spanish films or French poetry or German literature, whatever it might be, German cars, it doesn't matter, but something that is relevant to their lives. It doesn't matter what that thing is, but hooking them in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is a really good extension of the last show that we did, all about cultural capital. So if any of our listeners haven't heard that one, please do. Once this is over, don't leave now, but please do go back and listen to that one, because I'm sure a lot of what we talk about today will build on our discussion of cultural capital, of how we get our students to broaden their cultural horizons through things like exchanges and the digital world and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, it'll be really exciting to kind of build on what we were talking about last time. Let's go next to a lady who also needs absolutely no introduction at all. She is the one and only Miss Esmeralda. How are you, Esmeralda?
Hello, hi. I'm very, very, very honored to be here. I don't, yes, it's fantastic to share my views. I am head of MFL at the moment. When I'm starting in September, I was head of MFL. I had a year off, and then I'm back to the classroom, and I'm gonna be head
Oh,
of MFL in a secondary school, comprehensive school, and I love. Not just languages, but how to make languages accessible to students so they understand the need to learn languages. And my previous school, we used to have a motto, which was taking languages outside the classroom. And in my new school, we've decided that new motto is going to be languages are life skill. And that's just to
oh, I love
yes
it.
to capitalize the importance of the language, of learning a language, not just as we were saying, with I absolutely I agree. It's not just about doing languages to be a teacher or to be a translator. It's about doing languages to do any other path and open paths in your life, the same way as you swim. the same way as you play an instrument, the same way as you read, is a life skill. And I think we can do as teachers a lot of things in the classroom. And yes, traveling is amazing, but not only that. There are a lot of things, even if you cannot travel, through project-based learning, and how we can make languages connect with the languages in the classroom. So it's really, really super excited, and thank you for your lovely introduction as well. And honored to be here with people like Fiona, Rebecca, absolutely delighted.
Oh, Esmeralda, we are so happy to have you. And I'm so excited to hear that you are back in the classroom. Because last time we spoke was at the MFL Icons
That's right.
last summer.
Yes.
And that was, yeah, and that's kind of when you were making your transition.
That's correct.
And you know, I knew that you would succeed during your year off, which you clearly have because you've been doing some amazing stuff. But your passion and your enthusiasm is infectious, and I'm so excited to hear that you're back in the classroom, passing it
Absolutely.
on to
It
our
was
young
lovely to
people.
have year off and to see things, but I belong in the classroom, and I belong with the kids. So super excited to be back.
Ah, excellent. Excellent. All right, thank you. Let's now go to Declan, who is the director at International Newcastle. Good evening.
Hi there, this is Declan Baharini. Yes, I'm the director of International Newcastle. I'm not a teacher, but I'm very passionate about languages, international links, and developing intercultural awareness for children and young people. And so, as part of International Newcastle, our role is to facilitate, broker, and enable partnerships that support that within the city of Newcastle. And our priority is all about Newcastle being an international city for children and young people as confident global citizens. And we've been working on this since 2019. We've done a lot of stakeholder engagement with schools and other people in the city. And it's all about, for us, it's about raising ambitions, building skills, widening access to the opportunities that young people can achieve in their lives and careers. And we have like 3 interconnected strands. So the things that your speakers are talking about already are music to my ears, because we launched an initiative called Newcastle City of Languages back in 2020, just before the pandemic, 2 months before the pandemic.
Oh, typical.
No, but the pandemic has been helpful for all our work, strangely. So we launched this partnership, and it's all about supporting teachers, and so CPD, bringing in resources, links, opportunities for teachers to be involved in improving how they teach and access different types of resources. We run events and webinars, all sorts of different things. And we also set up, because of the pandemic, we set up a regional festival of languages. So I
Oh,
host and
amazing.
coordinate that. Yeah, and we've got over 50 partners delivering activities for free every year. And it's been incredibly successful. We had 21,000 children involved this year, 521 schools. And that's the fun side of languages and links and cultures. And the other 2 strands, very, very important, a huge piece of work that we do is around brokering international links for schools, and also supporting them to access funding to then travel. And if they're not traveling, we actually help them to develop an international approach within the school, have the link, and work online on different projects and initiatives to build the relationships so that they still get the benefit. They get more benefit if they go on the visits. But I've just worked it out today, actually. We've raised £1 million over 3 rounds of touring for schools in the city. So that's not bad. I'd like all the schools to be able to do that, but not all of them apply, and not all of them have the confidence. But then we have our 3rd strand, which is around internationalism within the city itself. So that's about connecting schools, children, young people, both within their own schools through initiatives like Schools of Sanctuary, lots of different intercultural activities, linking them with partners in the city who can come into the schools, and really supporting the kind of multilingual classrooms that we have. Newcastle, strangely, you probably wouldn't imagine, but we have a very, very diverse primary and secondary population now in the schools.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's about shining a light on all of the different languages and cultures that are in the schools, and we create activities and initiatives that enable all the children to participate in activities. So it's a kind of 3-pronged, interconnected approach So languages are sitting not on their own in a lesson. We're trying to spread the languages across the school community and spread the links and build opportunities for children and young people.
I love that. I think that's such a good idea. It sounds like an amazing initiative. And I love the fact that Newcastle is involved because, it shows the kids that the city itself values languages. The city is saying that they are important. And so, that's more than just their French teacher saying, oh, yes, you have to learn French. I think that's really cool.
Well, yes, and unfortunately, in the northeast and in Newcastle, we have one of the lowest language take-ups
Yes.
in the country. So there are some serious kind of evidence and reasoning behind our approach, and we've done a huge amount of consultation, and we are trying to sort of buck the trend. And we start from everything from early years onwards, and we have fantastic partners in the universities. So we're working with a sort of widening participation, the School of Modern Languages, other people within the university, the pro vice chancellors on international, and we're doing a whole range of activity around languages and careers to try and encourage children from year 8 onwards to think about languages. Just as you said in your introduction, the amount of opportunity that is out there, the range of careers, the range of things you can do when you have a language, it's so important. And a lot of our children just don't, it doesn't come onto the radar, and the careers
Yeah.
advice doesn't ever mention it. And that's
No.
something I'm on a mission to change that, and we're working with our local enterprise partnership to try and look at that and see if we can actually make some change.
Excellent. That's such a good point that we'll come back to later. But I think the careers department in schools can play such a big role to help us out. I'm very lucky because in my school, our careers advisor actually has a degree in French. So she knows how important it is. But I think it's really good that schools that are not as lucky as me have got businesses, have got initiatives like yours that can kind of push that along. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karine, are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Yourself?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what your background is?
Yeah, so I was going to say a few things. So I'm a teacher, so I've been teaching for over 20 years now. I currently teach part-time at a school in Essex, and you've got two of my students here this evening to talk about their experience. But over the last 10 years, I've been working at Pearson Edexcel, so I've been working on many projects, and recently I've been working with Fiona on resources for the new GCSE, and I've been also involved in the new GCSE and so the new spec. But I'm also one of the trainers at Pearson, so talking to teachers about the what we do and how we can support them. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I'll talk later about my experience of promoting languages when we get into chatting, but just a few things here about me.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. One of the things I love about this show is that we get such a diverse range of voices from across the teaching community, from across the country. But we all seem to be singing from the same hymn sheet, which I think is so important. Okay, and so to finish us off, Victoria, are you there?
Hi there.
Hello, how are you?
I'm brilliant, thank you.
Good, good. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Hi, so I'm one of Miss Harrington's students, and I've just finished taking my A levels in the past few weeks, and I did my French A level. So I'll be talking a little bit about.
Excellent, excellent. How did you find the exam this year? Did you think it was okay?
Oh, hi, sorry.
No, that's right.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. I didn't mind it too much.
Good, good. I thought that as well. When I looked through it, my school we do the EdXL one, but when I looked through, I thought it was a nice one. So fingers crossed for you.
Thank you very much.
Right, now we have got such a wide range of speakers today. Can I just double check that I've not missed anybody? So if you are thinking that you're speaking and I've not asked you to introduce yourself, can you please let me know?
I think you're all good, Darren.
Excellent. Good, good, good. I was looking at the speakers list and it was so long. I've been paranoid for about 12 hours that I would miss somebody off. So that is a good thing. That is a good thing. Right, we will get down to business. We have got a bumper show today. We are going to go for the 2 hours like we did last time because even that we found was not enough. And so we are hoping to fill it with really, really interesting things to talk about. But we will get straight down to business. And I'm going to ask the question of anybody who would like to answer it. Um, why do we think that exchanges and visits, because they're the things that kind of came up the most during those introductions as things that we think are important, why do we think that exchanges and visits are important to encourage our students to love languages?
It's time for a fresh start to language learning. Pearson EdXL's new student-centred French, German and Spanish 2024 GCSEs cater to the needs of all learners, regardless of their background, ability or reason for studying. Rooted in learned language knowledge, their assessments are transparent and accessible, allowing all students to showcase their language skills. Through inclusive and relatable content, the new Pearson EdXL MFL GCSEs build a shared cultural capital that helps students develop an understanding of and appreciation for the wider world. Find out more at go.pearson.com/MFL GCSE 24.
Rebecca, go for it.
So I think the main thing, or the first, I guess, most obvious thing, is for so many of our students, the country of where the language is spoken is just so distant to them. Anything that can make that a more tangible thing to really get to experience the language and get to understand that it's not just spoken by the teacher at the front of the room within the four walls of the school. I think that's the most important thing from my point of view.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you completely because it can be, we heard Declan talk about the experience of there being lots of different languages in schools in Newcastle, and my school has a big international cohort, but not all schools have that. Lots of schools are predominantly white, predominantly English speaking, and so it can create quite an insular idea of what languages are. So I agree. I think it's good to get our students out and meeting the people. Fiona.
Yeah, I was kind of going to follow up on that, really. I think it's about the connections, isn't it? It's about, embracing the joy of what's different, but what's the same, because you're taking them somewhere where, they will have packed lunches and go, oh, I'm not eating this, but, and that's the typical thing. But that's the whole point, isn't it? It's about making them step outside their comfort zone. But then you can get these wonderful friendships, sometimes even romantic relationships will develop. And they realize that although these students come from a very different culture and might have different routines, they're still all teens, and now it's quite different because obviously they'll all be WhatsApping in advance and you can see those relationships forming. And I think that's what's so lovely about it, that it's making them kind of see the difference and what's the same, that we're all just people. And that's the whole point, isn't it, about a global outlook? It's not prejudging it, it's embracing what's different and seeing it as a positive. And I think taking a student, if you're lucky enough to be able to do that abroad, is that starting point, really. I experienced it, when I was younger. I'd never been to Spain, and I wasn't that young. I mean, I was maybe 19 when I first went there, but I suddenly just had this eureka moment of everything I loved about all the things that were different, but also the commonalities, because Spanish people like to talk as much as Scottish people, and I realized that I could fit in pretty nicely, actually, with the level of chat that I had. And I think that's what's great. That's what I really love about it. It's seeing those connections and seeing those friendships, and that for all that it's different, and they feel really proud. I've taken kids on cable cars, where they've been shaking like a leaf. They've never done anything like this. It's not just about the language, it's about life experiences and being really brave and doing something that isn't easy. It's not always easy as a teacher sometimes to build those really strong relationships with schools, and there'll be hiccups, but it's important for the kids to see that even though it can be hard, it builds resilience, and they feel really proud when they've overcome that. Because if you can go and stay with another family or go on a trip to Spain when you might never have left your parents before, you do feel proud. No one can take that away from you. And that's what I always say to them, because it can be hard to convince kids to go on exchange trips, and they don't want to do it. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to step outside their comfort zone. But that's the actual inherent point of the whole thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that quite often, even though they might not want to go and they are embarrassed and it is outside their comfort zone, it's the chatting bit that the kids want to do, I find. Because like a big part of my job is preparing for the A-level speaking exam. That's the A-level component that I teach, at least for French and German. And quite often, the students will come in and I'll have prepared a card for them, but they say to me, "Can we not just practice small talk so that I know what I can talk about when I go to France, when I go
Yeah,
to Germany?" And
yeah,
and so I think, obviously we don't have time to teach small talk in the classroom, but getting them out there to actually do it in situ is the best way for them to learn.
definitely.
Excellent. Declan.
Yeah, it's to me that international connection is so important. Like you say, it brings everything to life. And we really do focus on a whole school approach to internationalism. And we try to sort of encourage the schools. We do lots of webinars and sessions and events sharing people's experience of international links and what you can do, the types of activities you can do. And again, the pandemic has made this so much easier because schools seem a lot more open to working online, doing joint
Yes.
lessons. We've had some brilliant experiences. We've got 60, I think, new links since 2020, so from nothing.
Wow.
And these are schools that are very, very deprived, under huge pressures, lots of different types of pressures, and the children, some of the most deprived in the country, and very, very mixed, as I say, in Newcastle, the schools, very diverse. But what we try to do is, if there is one class going on a visit, for example, so there might only be 30 children out of a school going somewhere, we will encourage the school to actually ensure that the whole school is involved. And I've been into schools and seen what they do across every year group, from the early years all the way through in the primaries. They do, they were doing joint maths lessons, they were doing geography lessons about France in this particular instance when I was there. They were doing all sorts of different things. They did cookery lessons. They did
Oh,
all
wow.
sorts of different things together. They did like a harvest festival type thing. They did Christmas activities. They have pen pals. And so they're constantly through the year building the relationship. And the teachers are building the relationship. And then the pupils are also building relationships and friendships. And it is absolutely life changing. And then comes the visit. And
Yeah.
for our families, some of these children have never been to a restaurant, they've never stayed in a hotel, they've never been on a train, they've never been in the centre of Newcastle, some of them. So this is just such a huge ask, and we have to do lots of preparation for engaging parents and carers
Of
to enable
course.
the children to go. First we have to persuade the schools that this is a good idea, and the more we do it, the more results we get, the more we can show the schools, actually, this is life changing for the entire school and for your curriculum. And some of the ones who we supported with international visits in the first round of Turing, they've now, it was a hard sell to get them even to link with France. And now one of them, the most deprived school in the city, is actually linked with India, and they've just got the funding to go to India. I can't believe it.
Wow.
And the poorest school in Newcastle, with huge amounts of deprivation, they're linking with Dubai, with a very rich school in Dubai. And I mean, and we had, I tell you what though, I mean, it makes me so inspired, because it changed my life going on international visits and doing languages. And I got a degree in Spanish and German, and I've been all over the world. And that basically comes back to a visit I did when I was 12 on an exchange to France. And it all kind of stems from there. And I know that, and anybody who's ever done it knows that.
Yeah.
And but convincing the schools who might not have that experience, the parents, the children, once you've convinced them, and once they start sharing information between the schools about the impact, it's incredible. We had 2 schools come in and present to our board last month. There was View, who'd been to Istanbul, which
Wow.
was incredible. But they'd done like a whole year of work with the Turkish community. They'd learned bits of Turkish and Arabic. They'd learned all about the faith, and they'd done all of this work. They'd even been to a Turkish restaurant in Newcastle. And then the children helped plan the visit, which was incredible. And the
Excellent.
children wrote the presentation and then presented to us. And it was just absolutely inspiring. And the other school had gone to Rome, and they were telling us all about their experiences there. And every single child has a different outlook. They've got a new attitude. They've raised their aspirations. They're more ambitious. One child said, I didn't even know there was anything outside Newcastle. They just kind of, there's a whole world out there and I want to go and see it.
Yes.
It's absolutely inspiring. So it makes them want to learn about other people, other cultures that are around them, that they can link to. They want to go and see the world. And, it will enhance, we think, over time. This is going to really enhance the curriculum across the board and get them, really fired up to be able to do more and see more and connect more and be interested in the world. And a lot of the schools are actually now linking in on things like global issues that are local issues as well. So sustainability, forest schools, cycling, health, mental health, all these different things that are important to children. And they want to do something about it, and they want to speak to other children in other countries about, well, what's it like where you are, and that is really inspiring as well. And we have quite a few now linking on a kind of sustainability theme, sort of climate change type themes, and I just think that is amazing. But of the 60 links we've got, 40 are with France and Spain. So that's deliberate because French and Spanish are the most taught languages in our schools.
Yes.
And we're just about to interview, actually, as of tomorrow, we're going out interviewing the schools to see how the international links are impacting on the MFL curriculum. And from one teacher, head teacher, has said it's transformed the MFL curriculum. So the link that they've got with France, it's completely changed how they teach French and what they can do with French in the school. So I'm really interested, and we're going to be producing some case studies about those experiences so we can share with the schools who aren't engaged yet and say, look at this, look what you can do. And in Newcastle, we are lucky because International Newcastle, I don't think this kind of thing exists anywhere else. We're just a little not-for-profit, but we work so closely with school effectiveness and we link into all the schools. So we're able to link loads of partners and give loads and loads of support to the schools to do this kind of thing. And I think that does make the difference because I've seen where the Turing funding goes, and it goes to places where the schools are supported to apply in the main, like Durham and Newcastle, whereas a lot of the other parts of the region don't even apply, which I think is a great shame. Yeah, I don't know if that's the same in all the regions. But we do a huge amount of work in the months and months in the year leading up to Turing. And I think that makes the difference. And as I say, that exchange of ideas and information between teachers is really important. And we'd like to do a big celebration event next year. We're thinking of bringing the children together to celebrate what their experiences are as well. So it's a very exciting time from a base of no links. We're really flying now, but it's a huge amount of work. But it requires the teachers and the head teachers to kind of want to be involved and want to provide those opportunities. So we have a big engagement of primary, but not secondary. Not for international links. Yeah, we're trying and we keep trying, but secondary are a lot hard, and yet, the impact on their MFL curriculum could be huge.
Absolutely.
So I don't really understand that. So if there's any secondary teachers there who have any ideas of how we can encourage more international links for the secondaries, we do try. We're non-stop trying to do this. And we have the links. We've set up loads of strategic partnerships with different parts in Spain and region in Spain, with twin towns, with other places in India and places like that. So the links are actually supported. We just need to get them over that barrier, and it might be a time thing. I don't know.
I think. I mean, I've got some ideas that we will save because that's my next question. But I do think that there are some very specific issues, certainly that have come up when I've done exchanges and visits, that I think might be impacting. And so it'll be interesting to hear what the others have to say on what they've done to overcome them. Karine, you want to say something on the importance of them?
Yeah, I just want to say something, but I think Vicky and Alice would like also to share their experiences on trips and visits. And I think they've been told to come on at 8 o'clock to speak to us. So I think maybe Vicky or Alice would like to, before I say something, otherwise, I might talk forever and they may not have time to speak. So, so there's Vicky, and I think Alice, she's just joined as well. She's a listener at the moment.
Just before,
so maybe...
admin here. And just before we connect them, I'm just gonna give a shout out. There's a little tweet coming in there from Jesse, who says this is a really interesting topic. I just came back from a trip, taking some students out to explore Chinatown on foot, feeling exhausted, but still getting drawn into the topic. Double smiley emoji. Jesse, come on, that's amazing.
Love
Thanks
it.
for joining us. I'll shut up now.
But no, mate, that's fine, because that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about going out and doing these things, and even as the teachers or the students being so empowered by them, so excited by them, that you still want to come on and listen to other people talk about them. I think that's brilliant. That is brilliant. Right, so Vicky and Alice, are you there?
Hi there.
Hello again. Hello. All right. So why don't you tell us about your experiences of trips and exchanges abroad?
So the school I'm at currently doesn't offer exchanges. So as much as I'd have liked to do an exchange, that
Okay.
wasn't to me. But we were able to go for a trip in December with the school to France, because that's one of the languages is offered. And I thought it was really important to be able to have like a tangible and immersive experience within the country, and to be able to ask like questions to the people that are in France, and like to see how people are living and working. Because obviously, as brilliant as it is to have French teachers, getting the experience of talking to and interacting with people that live and work in France really benefited me. I think with my A level, and I got to experience the culture in person, as well as practicing my language skills and like going to locations that I've read about that like shaped the history of France. To be able to just learn about that, which was really important and helpful. We got to like learn about the trains in France, which was really interesting. I quite liked going on the trains out there and like seeing the art and the markets. So that was really good.
It's funny, isn't it? It's those things that you assume are going to be the same, like train rides, that end up being the most interesting, because they're just so run of the mill that to then experience it in another country where some of it's the same and others isn't. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Vicky, do you want to talk about what you're going to do next year with your your French, and what you're hoping to do?
So thanks to my A level in French, I've had the opportunity to be able to move to Senegal, which is a French speaking country, next year for 8 months.
Wow.
To teach young people in disadvantaged communities maths and English skills, to be able to help them in their higher education and future jobs. So that's quite exciting.
That's really impressive. Well done. Well done for securing that opportunity.
Thank you.
And I think it would be interesting. I might have to. There we go. I might have to have you back on the show this time next year, to talk about that experience and to kind of see what you felt the differences between France and Senegal are, given that, the commonality is the language. But it would be interesting to look at how the languages impacted the similarities and differences between the two cultures.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds great.
Excellent, excellent. Well done. Well done. Did we have any other do we have any other ideas from our students before I ask Esme what she thinks?
Yes, hi. I also do A-level French. I've just finished it now. And
Hello.
hello. And I've loved being able to understand like conversations abroad. Like I've just been to Nice, and I could hear like conversations between people my age, and it's just so motivating to be able to pick up some words and some phrases. And yeah, I just find it really interesting, and I'll definitely carry on with my French, hopefully at university. And yeah, I think it's very important to go abroad, because it motivates you to be able to learn a bit more, because you want to understand everything that everyone's saying, and yeah, be up to date with everything.
Absolutely.
Alice, do you want to say the other languages that you can speak as well? Maybe your kind of how you love languages and what you've been doing with them.
Yes, so I've been brought up in a household with an Italian father and a Russian mother. So
Oh, wow.
so I've been brought up with 3 languages and learning French as well. I picked it up, I want to say a bit easier because there's some connections with the Italian language, but yeah, it's definitely a beautiful language. I do love learning about it, and especially the history. Especially the history of France. And for A level, we studied a book about World War II, and yeah, I just find it really interesting.
That's excellent, and it's nice that you've taken your background with the Russian and the Italian, and you've not just stuck to those, which could be very tempting, but that you've broadened out and that you're exploring French as well, and you're using those as hooks. I think that's a really good way to broaden your horizons and to open up your future.
Yes, definitely. And there's so many countries that speak French, so I think it's an advantage to be able to
Yeah, absolutely,
communicate in French everywhere you go.
definitely. Definitely. And before I move on, Esma, I know you've been waiting for a while. I apologize, but I'll be with you in 1 minute. I just wanted to ask, because at the top of, or a few minutes ago, I suggested that, young people want to be able to chat and to talk to each other. And, as interesting as all of us teachers are, and we are fascinating, I promise, um, it probably isn't the same talking to us as it is to people your age. So can I ask you, do you think that that is important, being able to go out to France or Spain or Senegal and meet people your age and be able to interact with them?
Definitely. I think I want to say year 9 or year 10, we got pen pals in France, and we ended up exchanging like Snapchats, and we could conversate with French students, which was so interesting. And you get to learn about their everyday lives and how different it is to ours. And yeah, I think it's so important to be able to speak to people your age. And it's slightly as interesting as my teachers are. It's a bit more interesting to be able to speak to people my age.
No, absolutely. Yeah, we won't take offense at that. That's fine. That's fine. But that is, as a teacher, that is good for me to have that confirmation because sometimes, teachers, we say things, we assume things. Like I assume that you will want to talk to people your age, and it's always good to have that confirmed. Esme, what are your
Hi,
thoughts?
it has been fantastic to hear students talking about this. I mean, I'm just fascinated. It's absolutely fine. Yes, absolutely
It's
brilliant.
brilliant.
I just want to add to the whole thing a little bit of things that have worked for me, especially when it was said how sometimes it's difficult to involve the schools and to make them into into develop these links. First of all, I really cherish the opportunities of doing exchanges as principle, because I really believe it's a little bit like playing a football match, meaning that the students always, you think about footballers, I always say that to the teachers, that when you think about football, a footballer will always remember the football match when they played for the World Cup, etc. They will hardly ever will remember
Yeah.
the coaching sessions. And that's a little bit what happens, how I see the classroom. I think I see myself as a coach, and obviously my lessons are like the coaching, and obviously my what I want students to be able to to play their football match. And for me, the football match, what better opportunity than going to the country and putting into practice everything that we've been learning. That's the whole point of all of it. It's making the subject alive. Sometimes it's easier said than done. So one of the things that we studied doing that really worked before is embedding the curriculum to these connections and partners that we had in France, in Germany, and in Spain, in my previous school. So, for example, that's something as well we're trying to do with the next school. With that, I mean
that at the end of a unit, when the students have to finish the unit, instead of doing a test, instead of doing a unit test that you normally do, the students will have to do something where they will have to communicate with the other students either in France, in Germany, or in Spain. So it could be a presentation through a Padlet. It could be ideally, they could see each other using technology, using Google Meet or something like that. But the idea is that they're learning the subject, they're learning a unit, so they will be able to communicate, and someone who is real, who is actually the same age as them, will be able to listen to them and to respond to what they're saying. That's super, super powerful. And that doesn't require like an exchange as such. It's just to develop in little steps. And then you can do those projects can become a little bit more elaborate with your partner schools. And eventually you can do like a physical exchange. But it's also very important as well to develop things with virtual exchanges. So you break up a little bit the awkwardness sometimes that you arrive there, and if you just
Yeah.
haven't had the opportunity to meet your your fellow students, and then you arrive there, you just need to stay in the houses. That can be my experience. That can be very nervous and awkward situations for the students. However, if they've been
Yeah.
communicating through project-based learning and it's been embedded in the curriculum, they've seen each other, they know each other. So it's a little bit like taking the pen pal experience a little bit further and embed it in how we teach the curriculum. And for me, this is what has made the huge difference. It's not just an exchange that you do at the end of the year. It's something that you'll be working towards from day one. And that's what has really revived the love for exchanges in my previous school when nobody wanted to do them, if that makes sense. I just wanted to add a little point there. That's all.
No, I think that's a great point, and I think that's a really important point to make. Is that it's about building up the relationships. I think that's been the common theme from everybody over the last half an hour or so, building up relationships between students in the partner countries, between teachers in the partner countries, so that we can overcome that not wanting to do it, in order to make sure our students understand exactly why these things are important. Um, Now, of course, it is really difficult to organize a trip or an exchange these days. As I mentioned when Declan was speaking earlier, in my school, we try it every year, and some years we are more successful than others. And quite often, the times that we find it difficult is because the amount of red tape that stands in the way. Britain is a country of red tape. And for good reason, I will say, the idea behind getting homestay families CBR checked before we send our students out to them is wonderful. It's great in theory, much harder in practice if you're sending them out to countries where CBR checks don't exist. So there are all kinds of issues that stand in the way of us organizing these trips and organizing these exchanges. So I was wondering if anybody had any experience of using, for example, the Turing scheme, like Declan mentioned, or the British Council, or any kind of corporation or institution to help them get an exchange up and running.
Yes, I mean, in the past, I've created we do had really wonderful exchanges with the British Council, and of course as well, with Erasmus. Unfortunately, now they are not there anymore. So Erasmus is gone,
No.
very, very. But the Global School Alliance has proved very, very, very good as well. And it's lovely to see that some of the people from the British Council have to move to work for the Global School Alliance, and then for me that's a little bit of guaranteed. So that actually would help you to find not just a partner, but also to organize the trip, and to even and as much help as you want. They also got some money as well, sometimes some bursaries for some of the schools as well, if it's needed. So there's something definitely to check, to check out, like a little bit of external help. In the case of TPS, I mean, we need them, and we need to have those checks.
Yeah.
But in the past, we were very lucky because we managed to get away from that, because we used to have a form that our local authority in Cambridgeshire provide us, and that basically was just a form that both families from both sides, had to fill in, saying how many adults would be
Okay.
there, the phone numbers, how many rooms would they change, would they have to share a bathroom, all of different, information. But it was done by both families, and it didn't involve. It was not something like a DBS, because some of the things, some of the families were like, "What am I criminal?" Some of the parents will be funny when
Exactly.
you would say to
Yeah.
them that they need to be, to have a DBS check. And our local authority was more than happy, because we also had a letter from the head teacher from Spain and from France and Germany, saying that they knew as well these families, and basically they vote for them, and they were absolutely, they were trustworthy. Plus this little Word document, so we didn't have to go through the DBS. I don't know in my new school how it will have to be, but I noticed that that was something that made our life so much easier as teachers, and the parents felt a little bit more at ease, the families as well. So that's just a little bit of of ideas there.
No, that's really cool. I hope if we've got any local authorities listening, you will kind of take that into consideration, because I know that I'm not a parent, but I know that if I got a letter through from my child's school saying so and so from France is going to come and stay with you, but we need you to be police checked first, I would find that a little bit insulting. You would understand why, of course, but I think it does, as Esme, as you said, it does kind of put into the parents' minds, oh, why? What have I done? Why can I not be trusted? And that then leads to an extra barrier in terms of getting the exchange up and running.
Exactly. For,
So
for
I
us, was
think
a barrier. That was a little bit of the parents felt a little bit insulted as a word, and also in
yeah,
Spain as well, and in the other countries, because they need is like, what? Why did you think that we are third world countries? Why Britain has to be
yes.
different? And that kind of thing. Now, doing the form, that really is the process. So I would encourage people to get in touch with the local authorities and see if that is something that could apply to them and they were happy with something like that.
Excellent. That's such a good tip. That's a really good tip. Thank you. Declan.
Yeah, I mean, there's most of the schools going on our visits are primary schools, and the local authority guidance is basically that they're not allowed to have homestays when they go abroad.
Okay.
So that they have to stay in hotels, but all of the schools who do go do a pre-visit. So staff go, they literally do the entire journey from start to finish. They
Yeah.
go to the hotels. They have a checklist from the local authority around, what's appropriate in terms of safeguarding, ratios of staff, all that kind of thing. And they also then make a film of that, and they'll share that with the parents and carers, so everybody knows exactly what the trip will entail from the minute they leave to the minute they get there and stay there, and then coming back as well. But we run monthly sessions with the local authority for all the schools who get funding for a visit. We'll do special sessions. We use the British Council's toolkit, which is really, really good on planning an international visit. And we've run sessions for schools specifically with British Council and with British Council ambassadors in the region. And that works, and it means that they're very, very thorough. The visits are planned to within an inch of their lives, really. And it takes that bit of hassle out of it. But the most difficult thing is most of our children won't have a passport or a visa.
Yes.
We've got children from all over the world in the schools, so some of them need visas, some don't. And we also support refugees and asylum seekers to go abroad. That can be quite fraught. We've had incidents at airports where the local authority has had to go to the airport to explain that this child is allowed to leave and must be able to come back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And there's been a few instances where, because they were unsure if they'd be let back in the country, that they didn't end up going. So they were actually at the airport. This was like in the first cheering round. Absolutely awful. But we know that now, so that we have a process and procedures to help them. So the local authority is absolutely brilliant on providing that support for the schools for all the things around passports and visas. And also, because our children are also deprived, we make sure that they apply for the exceptional costs. So they all have, it's great actually, they have they'll have a school t-shirt, a school sweatshirt, they have a backpack, a hat, and
Yeah,
luggage that's all the same, and usually in some bright colour. They all seem to pick a different colour, orange or green, or so you can actually see them,
you
and
can.
they're really
Yes,
easy to spot. And it makes for fabulous photos as well. So they've all got, France 2023 or whatever it will, wherever
love
they're
it.
going. And that levels the playing field for these children. It's everything from like sun cream to, injections. It might be all sorts of different things. But
Yeah,
we say to the schools, apply for what these children need. And we have a lot of children with special educational needs and disabilities who also, we want them to be able to go on the trips as well. So the pre-visit's absolutely essential to ensure, to check the food, to check
yes.
everything. And we'll have children with allergies, children with, who might have fits, all sorts of different things, and making sure they've got the right ratio of staff support, and that where they're located in the hotel, everything is checked. And that
That-
makes it easier. It gives the parents some confidence. It gives the children confidence. As I say, the preparation is ongoing for a whole year before a visit, and any questions they have, we're there really to support them. And I don't know if that exists everywhere else, but we feel like it's necessary just to make sure that those children are safe and they can enjoy the trip, and that the teachers aren't stressed beyond belief. And actually, some of the feedback from the teachers is amazing. They've said one of them said it was the best education experience of their lives, taking a group of children abroad, and they didn't expect it to be because they were terrified.
yes.
And rightly so. I think I would be terrified, to be honest. I'm not a teacher, but it's exactly the opposite of what they thought, because it is so well planned. But there's always issues that come up, and where we've had some issues with the visas and things, we actually get the consuls involved and get them
Okay.
to write letters, sort of saying this person has entry to France. A French consul has done that a few times and should be allowed back in the country, because
Yeah,
it's pretty major. It's a pretty major barrier.
absolutely.
So it takes a
Absolutely.
lot of work, and I think that's the thing. I don't know if everywhere has the same kind of level of support that we
I think
provide.
you're amazing. Can I
Yeah,
just come in and say that your
go for it.
area is just so lucky to have someone, an organization like yours providing all this support. I don't think it's the usual thing. That's my experience. Please, tell me if I'm wrong. And I think that is
I
absolutely
think it
amazing.
probably used to be. I think the local authorities used to do this. Now, the local authorities don't tend to
Not
have
anymore.
an international officer. Newcastle doesn't. So I'm the kind of international officer, but I don't work in the council. But I have to say, the school effectiveness team, who are incredible. One woman in particular, who's not on this call, but is Sarah Edgar. She is the one who helps with all of these different issues, and it's without her, I don't think anybody would be going anywhere, because that level of support
That
is
is
incredible.
amazing,
She bends
because
over
teachers,
backwards.
we
Yeah.
are just so busy with everything that we have to do in our own lives, and then to organize a trip from scratch is a massive event, especially when you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that might be of interest to some of the listeners is we also kind of group
Yeah.
where the schools are going. So we have strategic links, I call them. So Nancy in France, that's a twin town. We've got really good connections there. And the children go and they get hosted in the town hall and all sorts of special treatment. We set up a link with Spain because we didn't have a link with Spain. So we set up a link through British Council with the region of Aragon in Spain, and we've got 17 new partnerships there. And we also link other schools outside our area with there, because there's such a demand for links with the UK, which is quite unbelievable considering Brexit. But the school effectiveness team, the head of that department, actually sort of designated a member of staff who is a teacher with 30 years experience to work with me. And originally, when we started, it was 1 day a week working on languages and international things. And now she's 4 days a week, and she's probably going to be full time shortly, just doing this. And that is what makes a massive difference in Newcastle. So we're so lucky to have such a supportive local authority. And as I say, the schools have confidence because they work through the council and with us. And I think that's the sort of the golden triangle, as it were, of the relationships.
Yeah, I would say that support is so important because I was thinking as you were talking about particularly about pre-visits because as the teacher it is right that we go and do the pre-visit, but it's done in our own time, usually during holidays. All these millions of holidays that we keep being told we're lucky to get. Um, and quite often not completely at our own expense, but schools do struggle to fund them. And so I think, if there are any organization that can take not necessarily that part away, because as the teacher, you want it for your own peace of mind to know what the
Yeah.
hotel looks like, to know where the market is. I think, if somewhere else can take away some of the red tape, some of the busy work, as much as I hate to say it, then it does kind of even the playing field a little bit.
Well, just to say in Turing funding, our schools couldn't go without Turing funding. They just, the parents can't afford it. The
Yeah.
schools can't raise that amount of money. But if you are going for Turing, you only get a pre-visit if you have children with special educational needs and disabilities. So if you've got any of those in your cohort, it's a fully funded pre-visit, and the teachers are funded to go the travel, accommodation. It's usually about 3 days, and that is essential because it doesn't just help those with the special educational needs who are going, it also helps everybody. And I think the teachers really, really value it. And if you think the teachers, they may have met online, but they've never met in person, they haven't
Yeah.
been at the place, they don't know. I mean, I know one school was leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they did that journey. They did these kind of crazy timescales to see if it would work. I was thinking it was madness myself, but that's what they wanted to do. Some will go on trains all the way through different countries.
Oh,
And I was
amazing.
thinking, oh my God. So there's a lot going on trains and the Eurostar, and there's lots of changes there. They go to Paris and then they go out to another train and another train. Huge long journeys. And without the pre-visit, I don't think the teachers would have the confidence to do it. And the safeguarding checklist has to be done for the local authority to kind of sign off really on these visits and make sure that it's all done to a standard that meets the needs of the children. And some have very, very specific needs. But yeah, so if you do go for Turing, I don't think people realise that you must have those send children to get the pre-visit, but the pre-visit is peace of mind and good planning for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's really important and that's really good to know. Fiona.
Yeah, I mean, as the conversation's gone on, I've got a few things to come in on. But I was going to talk about DBS check because I did actually do that in the last exchange I ran. So I just
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
talk about my experience of that. I thought that might be helpful for people.
Yes,
And
please.
also just some of the safeguarding aspects really, and how to protect yourself as a teacher, because I think, the word support's been mentioned a lot, and I think I would definitely I'm a kind of of two minds here. I mean, I've had a lot of things that have gone wrong on trips, some really quite serious things and accidents. I've had Spanish children in hospital, flown the family over. I've had all
Wow.
things that happened to me, and I'm really happy to talk about those experiences and sort of. But I don't want to put people off at the same time. But sometimes there's it's like a fine line. But I think because of all this, I still love exchanges and I still take away the positives. But I did do some training in London a long, long time ago, and it was a very top level kind of course on safeguarding on exchanges. And there were some fairly senior people, and the police were there. And I think the thing is that although, yes, it's red tape, and although it's a pain, ultimately some things can really go wrong. And, there
Yeah.
were some absolute horror stories of things that had happened to children abroad. And, in the end, you are in loco parentis. And I don't think that's a reason to be put off. Like I can't even tell you how many trips, and I would do it all again. But I think things have happened to me where I've learned the lessons, and I'm happy to share some of those, but I'm aware I might put the fear of God in people. But and I think the first thing I would say is what Esmeralda said about the forms. I think it's really important with your host school to be very explicit about what sort of information each family needs about the other family. And I think that can go a long way to mitigating some of these issues. But, I've
Yeah.
had a situation with a school in Germany where they wanted all the students to go have names in a hat, and they all had a fair opportunity. But a child with a very, very serious mental health issue participated, wasn't taking medication, and then put my students in a position of danger, really quite a serious situation where, I think with hindsight, I think it's wonderful and laudable to want all children to go. But I've equally had a trip where I've taken British students who, you know, I asked for the school's support in this and said, I'm not really keen on taking these children. And they went, and it was a mistake. And those children shouldn't have gone. Their behaviour, I was right. My gut feeling was right. I would say, always go with your gut. And I think there are a lot of those problems could have been avoided with really, really effective communication, either with the exchange school on the types of students that are suited to exchange. And it's not about them coming from a certain family background. It's just that you have to be realistic that, you know, there's a time and a place to involve everyone. And, you know, if you have any doubts about a child or a family, and go with your gut feeling. I mean, I've had a Spanish child stealing from a host family. Now, the Spanish school were horrified, could never have predicted he would have done that. I think it was a stress reaction to his circumstances, but we obviously had to deal with that. It still ended up peacefully where we, you know, sorted the problem out. And we had a lovely party then for all the families, and the family who had been impacted by this still came along and shared food. So you can overcome these things. But with the DBS checks, my feeling is that although I saw it as a massive amount of red tape, I ultimately thought, well, this is giving me some peace of mind that I'm bringing these Spanish children into a home. But, you know, you have to be aware of the time that it takes. I mean, everybody over 16 in that family has to have a check. But I would say that meet with your parents. I think it can come across as very cold in an email. And I understand why parents might think, why are you doing this? But I think if you can really get those relationships with parents going from the beginning and explain to them that it's not because you have any doubts about the safety of their family home, it is purely a check. It's a something to have in place. And if you think about it, it's for your own protection as the member of staff running it. And what I would say though is, if there's any way the school can give you admin support, then beg for it, because I regretted this, because I had to physically photocopy all of these checks. And it does take time, and you need to allow a long time for it. I mean, I'd also say things like, apologize if I'm preaching to the converted. I'm sure lots of you here will have been very experienced and taken many visits, but, you know, photocopy all the kids' documents and passports, because you don't know what's going to happen. I've taken multiple children to hospital from as minor things as a whiplash injury on dodgems at a fairground in Spain, to, you know, a really serious, you know, some really serious situations where a child had appendicitis, and I had to fly over his family from Spain to be with him for emergency surgery. You know, so don't be put off, because it worked and it was all fine. But the reason you have this paperwork in place, one of my children I took to Spain, put his mum put his passport in his, which was in his jeans pocket, in the wash, and we had to go to the Spanish embassy because the entire passport was destroyed. So, you know, take a copy of everything and just have a contingency plan. It's not just down to you, it's down to your SLT. There will be someone who has a designated responsibility for trips. There should be forms to fill in with the local authority, but always sense check everything twice, because the local authority told me that I was fine with the ratios I had, and EasyJet had other ideas, and we got into really serious trouble at the airport because they insisted we were one over, and the local authority had approved the trip. So get the school to book the flights, you get them to take the responsibility. They have finance departments to do that. You know, and I know it's work for schools, but if they want you to run these exchange trips, you shouldn't have to carry this full responsibility yourself. I've also had a situation where kids took luggage out, Ryanair didn't say a word, and then on the way back, they weighed all the bags and told me they were over, and I had to pay it myself on my own credit card and then get the money back from parents. So, you know, things like simple stuff like that. It's like weighing the kids' luggage, telling parents what the weight is, telling them there's no way around that, making sure the school have a contingency plan for a serious accident. So I had a child very seriously injured and needed to have provisions made quickly, and probably would have ideally had a member of SLT fly out to be with me and support me. So these things, like, no schools can preempt these things exactly, but I think it's just good to have those conversations. That's what, you know, I've been there late at night crying over my risk assessment thinking, why am I doing this? But now I completely get it. As a young teacher, I would have been like, oh, DBS jokes, oh. But, you know, I have been in pretty much all of those situations where the reason you do that risk assessment is to think through, you know, who's my point of contact for SLT? Would they be able to fly out if I really, really needed them? If I have to fly a child's family from Spain. But, you know, I've obviously been on loads of trips, and the majority of kids, there's been no problems. But, you know, kids do get ill, and use your host family. You know, with this kid with appendicitis, I was quite a young teacher, and he was complaining of a sore stomach. And I went, oh, he's homesick. He's not used to the food. And the host mum phoned me late on Sunday night and said, I'm really not happy. I really think we should go to out of hours. And I was going, well, don't worry. But I said, no, go with your gut. And she was absolutely on the money, and he needed emergency surgery. So you do have other support, you know, use your host families, use your SLT. Do the risk assessment in detail, get your local authority to help you. They have performers. I don't want anyone to listen to this and have the fear of God and not do it, because it's worth it all. But ultimately protect yourself, because you can end up in situations where you have to make quick decisions, and pick your team wisely who go with you, because they don't have to have language skills. They just need common sense and ability to think on their feet and under pressure, and they are your biggest support. I mean, I've taken incredible staff on trips who've dealt with all of these scenarios with good grace. But don't be afraid to not take a child if your gut feeling tells you their behavior that they're not up to it. Don't be afraid to say no to SLT if they're saying you need to book these flights yourself. Get the help. If touring can help you, if Global Alliance, if British Council can support you, it takes a village, to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to organise a trip and an exchange. And it's completely worth it. But I would just say, if you're worried about red tape, think about what it's there for. It's there for your own protection, and it's a massive responsibility. And as long as you get support with the admin, it is definitely worth it. And I've done pre-visits, but I had a Spanish tour company paid for me and my husband to go to a pretty rubbish resort in Spain, to be fair, but we got to go there in October and try it out before I went with kids. Wonderful Spanish families have hosted me when I was quite pregnant, actually, and flew out for a weekend to do it, because I wouldn't have wanted to do that with 20 kids in tow. I wanted to check it out for myself, and they looked after me royally. So I know it's a lot, and I've given up holiday time, but the friendships and the amazing experiences I've had in Spain and Germany, and lifelong friendships actually with some of these teachers, have made all of the disasters worthwhile. But I would definitely think through all these things, because things do go wrong, and that's what the paperwork's there for. It's not for when things go well, it's for when things go wrong, and you'll be glad that you've got it, believe me.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, to be in a position where we can complain about red tape is very privileged, because it means that we haven't had to use it. And I think you're absolutely right. I will say, I was thinking about this when you mentioned SLT. My school, as part of our trips and visits policy, it is necessary to take a member of SLT or a senior member of the teaching staff with us on any residential trips. So that might be worth thinking about if you're organising one. Yeah, if you need another member of staff, then approach your SLT, see if they want to come on a jolly, as everybody thinks it is, before they actually go.
Then they learn that it's really not.
Absolutely. But that way you've got the SLT support there with you the whole way through. And I know from things that my colleagues have said that it can be invaluable.
Yeah, and I definitely think if that's not possible, make sure that you have got a designated person who is literally available 24 hours, because if you're taking a child into hospital who's had an accident, it's not likely to be in civilized hours. It's only happened to me twice, but each time I absolutely needed that person to be at the end of a phone call. So just be really sure that SLT understands that when you're abroad, it's a 24/7 gig. I mean, we've taken head teachers out on in exchanges though, and they've been sitting in the bar in the Spanish school quite happy and thinking it is a bit of a jolly. Right. But definitely get SLT very aware of why they should be doing it, how amazing it is, but that it is a big responsibility. And if you can let them go in term time, 100% try and do that, because I've done it in holidays, and you just end up where you're not fit for anything when you get back. And even if you can do a 50-50 compromise, I think that's well worth doing, so that you've got some holiday time. Maybe like touring, they will provide some support with cover, because it's cover that's the barrier to this. That's why schools can't let you out in term time. But I think you just have to keep fighting and keep asking the questions, because when the school get those amazing photos and those amazing stories and do assemblies, so that they can see that it's all worthwhile. And even if you only take 10-15 kids, it's still worthwhile, because it spreads, it's like magic, and their friends will get involved and come out on some of the trips and with you. Sometimes, when I ran the parties at the end of the exchange, we'd get kids who hadn't been able to go but still got involved. So it's all worth it. But I think support is absolutely critical.
100%. 100%. Karine, you had raised your hand a little while ago. Did you want to add something?
Can't remember what I wanted to say, to be honest. No,
it's great, isn't it? We're also chatty. I love it.
I think the question was about using institute like organizations, but what I've done in the past in order to kind of try to give students the opportunity to kind of mix with students whilst not being on the neck change, just to try to go around the red tape. I kind of try to organize it like during the day they would be with students in France, for example, but then at night they would be in a hotel. So trying to kind of go around the red tape of staying over in a family. So, I've organized a few times for students to spend a few days in a French school. So they would communicate beforehand with the students of their age. So then they would follow them for a few days in the school, join the school, go to the canteen and all do that. And then after school, go out with the students, but at night we would just go back in the hotel. So I think that gave the parents some kind of there were some reassurance that they wouldn't stay in another family, but also to kind of to reduce the amount of red tape we had to do. And also what I've done in the past is organized some kind of work experience as well. But again, it was staying in a hotel at night with teachers, and during the day there would be students going into different businesses with a teacher there, and there could be like a library, a museum, a town hall, and they would
Yeah.
do some work experience. But it was kind of half exchanges, half visit, but it gave the students the opportunity to mix with the locals or with the students without the group around them. So just to be one-to-one with the students, because when you go on a visit, they tend to kind of speak English among themselves because they're all together. But for that, it was very useful also for the students when they spend time in a school. They could see what was different, what was the same, and then they were mixing them, making friendships with the students. But as I said, the parents would be kind of reassured that at night they would be in a hotel with us. So it was one way around of trying to avoid the red tape and to minimize the amount of paperwork that we had to do. And it gave the students it had a great impact on their understanding of French culture, but for teenagers and, doing things, going into school that, what we teach them at school is kind of real, that they don't have a uniform and they do this and they do that. So it was real for them. So sometimes finding a way around all these forms and trying to organize. I know it takes a lot of time to organize things from scratch, but sometimes might be one way around it, to do that. And as I said, over the years I've been teaching, over 20 years. I've organized many trips as well, and these were the most successful because they were able to discover the culture, but also mix with either students of their own age, but also all working in businesses, but also visit the area. So not just about cultural visits, but also as a mixing with the locals, and that was very very beneficial for the students. That's what I just wanted to say.
No,
Yeah.
that's really interesting and very, very true. I like the fact that we are exploring lots of different ideas, lots of different concepts about what an exchange can look like, and what the students can do. Because of course, the more ideas we have about these things, the more we can put together a program that is perfect for our students, for our setting, which in turn can minimize the stress that we're under when we're organizing it. So no, that was really good. Thank you. Declan, you were next.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up another. It's a challenge and an opportunity, I would say,
Oh, love
that
it.
we ran into in our first set of international visits, and that was around Muslim children and Catholic children going to France, and
Ah,
the fact that France is secular, that you're not allowed to wear hijab or headscarves in all religious symbols in the school, and that was going to be quite an issue for some of the families, and as well as making sure that they understood the need for halal food or kosher food and things like that. So that took some work with the families and working with the schools, but obviously they weren't allowed to wear those things. But on the reverse of that, where we had children going to Turkey this year, they obviously have to wear a headscarf if they're going into a mosque. They have to be
yeah.
covered, all the rest of it. So they did some fantastic work leading up to it, in terms of a lot of the schools will talk about the religion, the faith, the customs and the traditions of that society, and they'll do work with the other school on that, so they really understand it. And they'll introduce the food as well. They'll either go out to a local restaurant to look at the food, try the food, or they will have the Turkish community come in and have a whole day of Turkish customs and food in that instance. And when they went to Istanbul, the children absolutely loved going into the mosque. And they went into lots of mosques, and there was one girl, she had 6 different headscarves, different colours to match, or different outfits while she
Amazing.
was there, and they actually understood what they were going into and how to behave and everything else, because we have mosques and gurdwaras and synagogues in our city, and they can go and visit that in advance, as well as learning about it and talking to the children in the other countries about why they eat what they do, why they dress how they do, and it's an issue. It's an issue you can avoid by doing that advanced preparation. And just being very, very clear on what those customs and traditions are in the place that you're going to. And I think it did come up early on, luckily, before the visits, of those first visits that we did, that actually happened in 2022. But something to bear in mind, because every country is different, and there will be a mix of faiths and traditions, that you do need to respect the culture that you go into and have some kind of understanding. But that means that those children, they're really getting that kind of global citizenship type education, and they really have a much better understanding of the cultures abroad, but also those cultures that exist within their own school. And so it has many, many benefits, but it's just to flag up for people who maybe organising visits where that's going to be an element.
No, I think that's really important. And I think that would be a really nice way to encourage parental engagement again, to build up the relationships with the parents before you go, get them in to do little workshops on what it means to visit a mosque, and help to broaden the horizons of some of the parents that we have, help with the parental cultural capital as well as the students. I think that's really good. I think that's really important. Esme.
Hi. I just would like to say as well that if anyone is listening and they are a little bit overcome by the idea of organizing an exchange, remember as well it can be done virtually. And one of the things that we started doing because of COVID, and then we carried on doing it after COVID, culminating in a physical exchange, was doing an exchange virtually, where the students would be for a couple of hours for 2 days off timetable. So that was something obviously that we had to talk to with the SM team, and they would be doing something in common, working in groups using Google Meets. And we had the students, this was basically a project that we did with pupils in La Reunion, in Spain, and in England. And they were working, 2 children from La Reunion together with 2 children from Spain, 2 children in the UK, and we prepared some activities. They have to ask each other some questions, they have to do some games and play some games together, and all that was done virtually. And that will take off a lot of the pressure as well, from the point of view of a teacher. When you're very busy and you think you're a little bit scared, or you think that you don't have the support maybe to carry on a full scale exchange. And the other thing I would say as well is about bringing languages outside the classroom. That was one of the mottos. And it's not just about exchanges, it's what can you do as MFL to really raise the profile of languages in your school. So things, for example, that when you finish a little unit, can the children do a little bit of like a drama sketch? Can they perform it for the whole schooling assembly? Can you record it and then send it to the parents as a QR code, so they can see the children in action speaking? It's about, can you have a debate in your classroom, like a debate competition, spelling competition, and you involve the parents? Can you have an international week? Can you have a lunch, an MFL lunch? And especially if all these, you get all the students or language leaders that we used to have, which is still is a qualification that you can get with roots into languages. And so some of the language leaders in year 10 would actually organize some of these events. So not everything is about an exchange, which I think is beautiful, is wonderful. I obviously I love it. I've done it, but it can be a little bit, probably a bit too much. You don't think you don't have, the support. So what else can you do, and how can you embed these cultural elements in whatever you're doing every day in everyday life? And for me, that's what we are working at the moment. That at the end of a unit, for in key stage 3, the students are not going to have a unit test. They will have to do something for the partner schools, and I think that will really be a powerful message of a life skill, and to make it, it's about creating sticky lessons, and it's not just with retrieval practice, but sticky lessons with live experiences in the classroom as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's somebody who makes no secret of the fact that he loved teaching online during lockdown and all the new stuff that the pandemic brought into education. I agree completely that, it isn't just about in-person exchanges. It is about doing everything we can to expose our children to the culture of our target language countries. And I think, using the whole internet is the perfect way for us to do that, which I will come back to in a second, after Rebecca and Fiona have told me what they have to say.
Hi, so I just wanted to echo what Esmeralda was saying about the importance of raising the profile of languages within school. And I think, some people who might be listening might be in the very early stages of raising that profile of languages in their school, and trips and exchanges might be a very distant dream at the moment to be able to be ready for that. So to know that
Yeah.
actually engaging with, start in September with European Day of Languages, make it European Week of Languages if you want to, go further with the extra projects, all those things that Roots into Languages, for example, do that Esmeralda mentioned, is so important. And not to think of those as add-ons. They are a really important and really useful way of raising that profile of languages to then help you grow towards trips and the eventual exchanges as well. So start small. You don't have to run before you can walk, because just for newer teachers listening, I know there's me listening who are very experienced, but for newer teachers listening, some of what they've heard might be really overwhelming. And actually start at the beginning, build that profile, build the reputation of languages, and it'll go from there.
Yeah, I love that. I think if any of us are going to take away anything from this show, it should be exactly that message. And I think even for very experienced teachers like us, it's important to remember that it is about building the profile of languages. Even if languages are well embedded at your school, don't be complacent about it. Keep raising the profile, keep doing new and interesting things to keep yourself as the teacher engaged and interested as much as the students. Fiona.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that really about the idea of starting small, because I don't want to put people off, with what I said before, which was there was some fairly big things in there. And I think it doesn't just have to be the languages that, you might be teaching, because although I'm a Spanish specialist, I've also taught German T level and French. I was responsible for coordinating visits in a school I was in, and we had an amazing Japanese group who came every year, who were just absolutely phenomenal, and did a kabuki play, and they performed it in English.
Oh, wow.
And we got the whole year 9 to come along. So it was, because you don't want this to be an elitist thing, because there is a certain type of family who will put their child forward for an exchange. And that's why it's so refreshing to hear about the International Newcastle, because it's allowing all students to do it. But we let all these students come. Now, some of them weren't maybe the best behaved students, but that is a contained environment where we could have them there, and they all got something out of it, because they were blown away by these Japanese kids. They couldn't believe they'd done this whole play for us in English, and it was beautiful, and they brought all the props with them from Japan. So I wouldn't necessarily take a child with very challenging behaviour on an exchange trip or visit, as I've explained, but you can involve all students in something like that. And the buzz around the school, I had Swedish groups, and, the kids were all interested, like, who are these people and why are they here? And you're saying, well, they've come to see our school because they want to see what we're doing. I think that's really powerful. And if you don't feel up to that either, because that's also a lot of work, we're talking about getting languages outside the classroom, where there's some really simple ways you can do that, and it's not on this level. But if I teach directions, because I hate teaching directions personally, I find it very, very dull. I always got them to take chairs outside, and we set up a mock town just with chairs and using the goalposts, and got them to physically walk around and direct each other. There was usually someone hiding behind the goalpost having a little snooze, but it was good, and it got other. I'm not saying your school might not allow you to do that, but in the summer term they might let year 10 go and do that, and other kids were like, what are they doing? Oh, they're learning directions in Spanish. And or try and get someone in the PE department to let you come and take over a lesson in Spanish with like a whole class, even the ones that are not keen linguists, doing all of the football match with Spanish instructions like goal and counting. Or I've had a class who were really not that motivated, who loved ukuleles, and we took them outside the classroom, filmed this ridiculous grammar song with ukuleles. It was very silly, with banners, filmed the whole thing so it could be shown in assembly, because they didn't want to perform it in assembly, but I wanted to send it to SLT and say, look, this is what we're doing in languages. We're getting them outside the classroom, we're doing exciting things. Get them to make a recipe at home, try and get them in food tech to get on board with you and let them do some cooking, and then see if the canteen will get on board and let you do sort of a Mandarin themed lunch or a Spanish themed lunch, because the canteens that I've worked with, they're really embracing of stuff like that. They're often run by external providers who are really, really keen to get involved and help you, and they've helped me plan menus, and we've got the flags up. And I think it doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't matter what your capabilities are or how much time you've got. All of those events will have been memorable for one of those children, whether it was a child who watched that Japanese student perform a play, or the child who played a ukulele as part of Spanish. And it doesn't really matter. It's about making them see languages as a really positive thing. And if you can't get them abroad, you mustn't think that there is no other way to do it, because there are lots and lots of things you can do. And I agree with the idea of virtual exchanges, because when I started teaching, you couldn't do any of that. You couldn't hook up schools in, apart from taking them there, but you can now. And it can seem really off-putting, but there'll always be someone keen in your school who, and they don't have to be someone from the language department. The language department are often very, very stretched. So get other people involved. Get a keen being in the geography department. Get someone in the food tech department, to work with you on it and help you and support you. So, you've got, I'm back to support again, but don't try and do it all yourself, because I often have, and you can't. So, you need everybody to get involved and make it like a whole school thing. That's what this is all about, really, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just want to pick up very quickly, and then Karina, I will come to you, about the cross curricular, because back when I was a primary teacher, so I taught, I was the PMFL lead. I taught French and Japanese reception to year 6, and I was a year 6 class share teacher. And I used to hate teaching PE. I was no good at it. I had to pretend that I understood all of these rules and teach them to my 11-year-olds who knew much more about the sports than I did. But one of the things I was able to do was to teach PE in French, completely. There was no English in my PE lessons at all. And so because the students pretty much understood the rules of the game that I was teaching them anyway, they could, as I was speaking French to them, they could pick up what I was saying. They could respond to my instructions, and there was all of that kind of background immersive teaching and immersive learning going on. So I think if you are a particular primary teacher and you are confident enough in your foreign language, if you are the PMFL specialist because you lived in Spain, because your degree is in Mandarin, whatever it might be, lead your lessons in other subjects in your target language. Don't just wait for your 30-minute MFL lesson. Because it's amazing what your students will pick up, and it's amazing what your students will follow, even if you're a bit worried to do that. Karine.
Yeah, I just wanted to carry on how to raise the profile of languages. At the school I was at before, I was head of languages, so I had to do quite a lot of things to promote languages. And the borough I was in, they organized something called Teach Your Friend a Language. I don't know whether some of you have heard about that scheme, but it was a very good incentive because obviously, we've got to use our students' languages, and we've got to kind of work on that. And basically, a student who would speak another language at home would would choose a friend, and they would have I don't know, I can't remember how many weeks they had to do to prepare like a conversation, and then we would take them to a school that would organize that festival of teacher friend language, and they would then perform their little conversation, and then they would also prepare a little table to display the language they'd been learning. So it could have been Turkish, could have been, Spanish, whatever that student would speak. So based on that, then what I did within my school, we would do the same. So instead of taking part in that big festival, we would do it without school, and our students would then choose either a teacher or another friend, and then at the end of the year, we would do teacher friend or teacher language, and then again they would perform a little conversation, and then they would display something about the country. And then later on, we also took that a teach your form a language. So someone in the form who would speak another language would work. So I'd spoken with SLT. We'd agreed that for how many weeks in form time they would do teach your form a language. So it would be over 4 or 5 weeks, and then the student who would speak another language would teach the form their language. So they would present like numbers or greetings or something like this. So that worked quite well, and so that was quite successful. So just to use the resources within the school of students speaking in other languages. Another thing that I did as well was in trying to involve sixth formers into helping other students. So, for example, sixth formers who would do French, maths, and history, for example, then I would ask sixth formers to maybe teach year 7 at lunchtime a bit of maths in French or German or Italian, whatever the language they would do. So that would work as well. So towards the end of the year, that would be at lunchtime, students would sign up and they would say, yeah, I'd like to teach a bit of maths in whatever. So they would just prepare that. And then again, it's just using not just us as teachers, but using other students as well to share their interest in languages, but also to share what they know. And I think that's very useful as well to do that. Not just about teachers to students, but students to students as well is very important. So just using what we've got within the school and see what we can use to promote languages. That's just a few things here I just wanted to share.
No, those are all really, really good ideas. I like that very much. I think it's important to get our students on board, and to get our students showing each other why languages are important. But that's my opinion. Vicky and Alicia, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Hello, Vicky. I was going to ask your opinion if you don't mind, and I understand that one of your teachers is here, so you have to be nice. But
I'm not going to listen.
As a student, do you think that when language teachers ask you to get involved with things like European Day of Languages or talking to other students about the importance of languages, do you think that does actually have an impact? Do you think that's a positive thing to do?
Yeah, I definitely agree. While I was in year 12, I got to be a French prefect, which allowed me to go into the year 7's classrooms and help with doing the speaking test and help with teaching, give support in class. And I really saw a difference with the young girls that I worked with their French and coming on and their confidence in their speaking exams from at the start where they were all like nervous and didn't quite know what to say, up when they were a bit more confident and they spoke in French entirely, because we do French and Italian at my school, so some of them were doing a bit of Italian and a bit of French, but It was nice to see their confidence grow. And then I think in year 13 I was able to give support to my own class by being a grammar captain, so I'd make PowerPoints and slides for our class to be able to review our points of grammar, which can then be passed on to the coming up years, which was quite interesting and helpful as well.
Excellent. I like that a lot. And did you feel that helped to improve your language skills as well?
Definitely, it helped me to be a little bit more confident as well around like speaking in front of people, and like especially in French, because that can be quite nerve-wracking because it's a whole different language.
Absolutely. Thank you. Fiona.
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about students, and then I also was just going to mention, in case I forget, about outside speakers. I think we're probably going to come on to this later, but I was going to talk about when Esmeralda said about language leaders. I never got the chance to do it because pesky pandemic got in the way, but there is a brilliant scheme that you can. It's a recognised scheme. You can have language leaders leaders in PE, but they do a scheme. Well, our local authority did for language leaders, and it was the perfect thing for year 10 to help with primary schools, because I had quite active links. I think we will come on to that later with the local primary, and we wanted to get the primary school children on site, you know, after like an after school club, doing kind of language based activities, and then get the year 10s to help. And I would say that, you know, if I know you'll all be aware of this, but when you have open evenings and things, it's so critical to get your really good keen beans in the language department involved, because it's the students who sell it to the other students and to the parents, and they're just like a massive resource. And you know, running clubs at lunchtime can be tricky, but sometimes the kids are really happy just to have some computers to go on Lingoscope. You don't have to be doing amazing stuff. I mean, I've done all sorts when I was young and keen, and did a kind of newspaper in the foreign language, well, you know, all sorts. But you know, that's where your keen sixth formers can be, you know, really helpful. Or kids that are doing DAV, they have to do a service award. You know, I know my son helped at Code Club with year 7 and 8. So get them to do it for languages. You know, when you find out they're recruiting DAV, like often schools will get whole year groups doing DAV now, like the whole of year 9 or year 10. So do an active recruitment drive and say, right, if you want your service award, and you know, you could say that they'll be given, you know, like croissants, or you know, they'll be fed for their efforts, but get them to come and run a club. That always works, doesn't it? Get them to run a club, you know, to help support you with that, even if it's just, you know, you're sitting having your lunch, catching up on paperwork and planning while they're effectively running around and helping them, and whatever it is you plan to do. That was just the thing I wanted to mention. But also about outside speakers, that even if your school don't have the money, which is understandable in the current times, to invest in, you know, perhaps, you know, funding students to go on trips. You know, there's a lot of information on Secondary MFL Matters about outside speakers that are good. If you follow some of the threads, you know, there's flamenco groups that will come in and perform, or French plays, or there's some fabulous people who talk about football and languages that come in and visit. So I would definitely encourage, you know, to find all that out, because if you go in some of the threads, people will talk about their specific areas. We've got a little bit of budget. Does anyone know anything good in the Northeast for this? You know, there's some places where they'll organise like food events, or they can go somewhere and do tasting of French food. So I definitely think that outside speakers is a big resource. I mean, we were able to get GCHQ in because we're a Cheltenham school, and at the time, and you know, we had the kids were able to be taught Farsi, or you know, they'll say, do you want to do Korean, and they'll speak to you about their experiences, and then you can involve a few more students than just a very small niche group, because you can, you know, maybe have it in the assembly hall. So I think definitely get anybody you know who's got any links who'll come in and talk to students about languages outside the classroom, and the careers they've gone on to have in languages. I think we mentioned this in Cultural Capital, but it's definitely something to bear in mind.
Absolutely, because it's like we said back at the beginning, it's all about showing our students that it's a big wide world out there, and languages are all over it. And so, you know, what can they do with them? Why are they important? Declan.
Yeah, just picking up on that, really. Transition between primary and secondary is a huge issue in Newcastle, and we wanted to try and encourage the links between the secondary language staff and teachers and students and the primary. So not just with the international visits, but there was one example recently where a school that was going to Rome, the secondary teacher who taught Italian and some students went in and did a whole session with the primary school that was going to Rome about Italian culture, and taught them some language, which was brilliant. And we wanted to sort of do more of that. But our university, Newcastle University, has a language resource centre, and their staff and students actually run free language and culture sessions for any schools. And sometimes just the schools don't know that that's an opportunity. So they'll go in and they'll do sessions, and they'll have international students. And we also have international student volunteers who do loads of work in the schools now, and they're from all over the world. And it's absolutely fantastic. That's working really, really well and organised through the local authority and funded by them, actually, that project. But I agree about sport as well. We had, through the Festival of Languages, we had a primary school interviewing Newcastle United Foundation staff who were all sort of multilingual, and they were absolutely blown away. You know, it was very, very inspiring. And we want to actually involve the football club and the other sports clubs in getting, you know, sessions, face-to-face sessions with young people. But there's also things like Welcome to the Arab World, which British Council and the Qatar Foundation International, they run that, and they'll come and do that. They did a session for 300 pupils. We did
Oh,
primary
wow.
and secondary, yeah, as part of the Festival of Languages. So we organised it, but they do actually run that around the country. So you just need to ask. There's so many resources through British Council. And the other thing, I've put a couple of links in the tweets about Enact and Lingua Cuisine, and these are fantastic. These are sort of European funded projects that Newcastle University is involved in, and it's a free app. They're both free apps. And Enact is kind of cultural activities from around the world, so different people add an activity and you can make something and you learn it all around that topic. It could be the Chinese dress, or it could be, you know, it was shadow puppets, origami, Japanese
Nice.
books, all sorts of things. And these are there and they're free and they're on the App Store. There's Android and there's, you know, iPhones apps for them. And Lingua Cuisine, and they involve learning bits of the language all the way through as well. And you can add your own cultural activities to that
Oh,
as
wow.
well. And Lingua Cuisine is the same, but for food. And so there's lots of recipes and there's videos on how to make things. And it's, you know, set up to run as a lesson. So these are just brilliant things that are there. You know, they're there and they're free. There's one thing that we also introduce. We do Mother Tongue of the Tongue, which is in most regions in the UK. The lead is Manchester Metropolitan University, and that's about writing in different languages, a language you're learning or a language that is your home language. And that has been a brilliant, brilliant project where the children sort of write about their experiences, their feelings, they write poetry. It's really, really a fantastic project. And that is also there. And we do a festival song each year. So we get a song and then we get people to translate the song, record
Oh,
the song.
excellent.
And then we actually work through the music services to actually then help the schools. You know, there's the musical arrangements are all done and everything like that. And then the schools can sing the songs in any language they want, basically. So that is we're trying to get them to do that with their international partners as well. So they're teaching each other the language. And I think learning languages through music is one of the best ways to really enthuse children, young people. So we've picked a great song for next year. And we're actually now working with Charanga, which is a national platform that's in most of our schools. And they've agreed to let us use the song and the rights, and they have all the resources for the song. We just need to provide the translations, which we're doing, just gathering those now. So there's lots of ways to do things that exist, you know, and to make it fun. And I think that's really important. And then actually to add the extra value is to do that with your partner schools in other countries as well, virtually. It's a great way to build that rapport and get them enthused about the language.
Absolutely. That's so exciting. And I think Declan, you've hit the nail on the head there, because there are so many things that exist. And it's one of the reasons that I have loved doing these shows for Pearson, because we've had so many great guests, so many people come on and talk about things that I didn't know existed. And I think, you know, building up relationships between teachers, both between the UK and abroad and within the UK, is really important, because we all know about things that we start to take for granted that other people might not have ever heard of before. And so I think it's really good to share these ideas. Esme.
Sorry. I was just going to give a shout out for the European Council for Modern Languages. They've got loads of free ECML. They've got lots of free things that you can use in school. And the one I really love is the Secret Agent Language Challenge app. So it's an app that
Yes.
you can download the handbook. There's 51 tasks, and it's about any language really, and I absolutely love it. So they've got to kind of find out how do you say I love you in however many languages, and including sign language, all sorts of different things, going from really simple challenges to more difficult ones. And they've also got a booklet called Laura's Language Journey Through Europe, which has, I think it covers about 30 different languages. The booklet's available in lots of languages. There's little QR codes where you can hear facts about the language and learn, like, hear the pronunciation. Just fantastic free resources. And then you've got all the Spanish Embassy, Goethe Institute and the Institut Français resources. There's so much brilliant stuff out there now. And it is free. It's just about knowing about it and, using it, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's such a shame for these things to be out there and to exist and for us to just kind of be blind to them.
Well, we use our festival, as well as doing very specific projects within the festival, we use it to kind of raise awareness of some of the free resources that are out there. And that seems to work quite well.
I love that. That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. Esme.
Hi. I love this idea. So this is just absolutely fantastic. I just wanted to share again. I mentioned about having language leaders, and that really worked really
Yeah.
well in our school, because these leaders would go to primary schools where we're talking about transition, and they would teach lessons to the year sixes and the year fives and the year fours, and it was fantastic for the leadership skills. It's something that they included in the UCAS application, and they get a qualification. Well, they get like a little certificate from Roots into Languages, and you can do it any year you want to, but we chose to do it in year 10. And actually, we made a very big fuss about it. So the students had to apply to be a language ambassador or language leader. And they had to, yes, they applied for it. We took the application form. We chose it. They had to pitch why would they be a good language leader. They would pitch in the assembly. So it was a really good way to get not just democracy and all the values and all these things, for Britain. It was absolutely fantastic as well, British values, but at the same time to raise the profile of languages. And the only requirement actually to become a language leader and to get the qualification from Roots into Languages is to teach. I think it was just 2 lessons per year, but we made it more because the students loved it. So one of the things they used to do is to go to the primary schools and read in the target language aloud at a little bit, a story. And that was really powerful. And the students could follow the story because it used to give us the stories that they really knew in English. And there was the big books that they used in primary school, but we used to get them in French, in German, and in Spanish. And that was just the year 10s. And they remembered all this all the way through A level, basically. And that was very powerful for them. I would also encourage as well to think about the possibilities of film. So the British Film Institute have got amazing resources and also days that you can take your students and you can take them over there and they just learn through film. So we were so excited about it that we actually included a film module in year 9, and we were learning, we just watching the film. The students had to, did a project and they were learning, and they were working on a film for 6-7 weeks, and at the end there was a project. So that worked really well as well. And then having treasure hunts around the school. And for that, so at the end of let's say every term, instead of just watching a film, in the MFL department, we used to have these treasure hunts that would involve culture, that would involve, moving all around the school, and there would be QR codes all around. There were prizes, and it was another nice way as well to develop and to raise the profile of languages, and yes, just for the whole school. I always think that as MFL, teachers, sometimes I see myself like a little bit like a bee, like a friendly bee, like buzzing around all the time, around with the SL team. So look what we're doing, and I think it's very important as well to involve them. I mean, we were talking as well about having SL team be going to drift. I think is great. But what about inviting the SL team as well to come to the lessons when something is happening, not to observe us, but to see how wonderful things are happening in the MFL department, and even inviting the parents and involving the parents in this journey as well. I think that's very, very, very important, because you don't have the support of the parents, you don't have the support of the SL team. It is very difficult to move forward. So having parents as well coming to the school, experiencing what was going on in languages, learning a language themselves, and offering something like they could put themselves in, have a good experience with the language. Because I had a lot of parents that said to me how much they didn't enjoy the French when they were at school and they didn't like it. That's not with the negativity, I thought. When you come and you say, actually, when I was at school, I was really bad at French. I hate that so much. And we
Yes,
wanted to break
yes.
that. It's just like a culture. It's not just, it says, what can we do to bring languages, not just in the classroom, outside the classroom, and to get the families involved and the communities.
Absolutely. I mean, you've said exactly what I was going to say, Esme, about the parents. A number of times at parents' evening, I've had parents sitting in front of me and saying, "Oh, I wish I carried on with French. I wish I carried on with German." And so I think, engaging the parents is a good way to expand our languages beyond the classroom, because we get to show the students that actually it is important. And while they might not all see that right now, they could do future them a favor and not have the same regrets in 15, 20 years that their parents do. So I think that's really, really important. Um, Rebecca and Fiona, I've got a surprise question for you, if you don't mind. I will preface this by telling the audience that we've not prepped this one. It's something that has just occurred to me. I teach the Japanese GCSE, and of course, within that, one of the units in theme 4 is specifically using languages beyond the classroom. And it's kind of, it encourages us to teach about relationships and travel and employment opportunities, all of the things that we've been talking about today. Um, are there those same opportunities with the new GCSE spec in French and German and in Spanish for us to be able to bring these sorts of things into our lessons and kind of make it part of our curriculum, how important languages are outside of the classroom?
I mean, I think the new spec is going to continue with all of this wonderful work. It's not going to stop you in any way doing all these things to enhance what you're doing. I mean, the theory behind it is more restricted content, obviously. So, I'd love to say it's going to free up loads of time. I don't think it's going to be that straightforward. There's still going to be a lot to teach, I think. But I think that rich culture and the love of languages, that's not going to change with this spec. Teachers are still going to do. We know that MFL teachers are this incredible bunch. Whenever I come to these events, I'm just absolutely humbled by the work that goes on, and just all teachers put their heart and soul into their job. We know that, and I
Yeah.
think I'm speaking as having been part of that MFL community, and I think MFL teachers, language teachers will always do that. They will always look for those opportunities. So you'll have a new course and you'll have new resources, and but I think all teachers will definitely seek out these opportunities, because we really, really need things to change, and more students to take languages at GCSE and beyond, or at very least to love languages and have it in their lives. We know that the national picture is not great, but all of these conversations speak of the opposite of that, don't they? Of all these incredible events,
Yeah.
whether it's a school in Newcastle that, maybe is an economically challenged area, but it's not stopping them doing these phenomenal things. So, I think the new spec should definitely not change the way that you're doing things, and definitely encourage you to get involved. I mean, I know I'm putting loads and loads of Spanish and Latin American culture into the books, so that whether students will get the chance to go there or not, they will definitely be able to experience that. And the new exams are designed so that students don't get caught out by their lack of knowledge of those things. No student who hasn't been to the country or been on a visit will be impacted in any way. That's the whole point of the new Pearson EdXL spec, is to avoid that. But in terms of like the teaching and the resourcing, of course you want to get your kids to see how languages can be used outside the classroom. And I think all these amazing teachers out there will continue to do that. I have absolutely every confidence that they will. And, we're just hoping to support with that.
Oh, that is music to my ears. Because I think, when I saw that the global dimension was part of I don't call it the old spec anymore, but I suppose it is. For Japanese, I was really excited by that, because particularly with Japanese being a minority language, a relatively small language, it's really good to kind of reiterate to students studying Japanese why it's important on a global scale. It may not have the same, global cachet as Spanish or French, but there are these things that you can do with it. And I would imagine, as someone who is very, I'm going to use the word passionate again, and I really don't want to. But as somebody who really believes in the teaching of smaller minority languages and protecting the teaching of those, I do think it's good for us to have the opportunity to have those conversations as well and say, yes, Japanese, yes, Occitan, yes, Basque, they are all just as important as, the big three.
Yeah, I think it's definitely right. I think people have spoken about embracing, students with English as an additional language in your classroom. Make the most of that as a resource and learn from those students. And, the minority languages and, obviously Japanese and Mandarin Chinese, it's much more challenging. I know, I know that Jerome, who's a colleague who's listening in, he has done incredible things taking kids to China, and it can be done.
That's
But
incredible.
I mean, he has had experience, and he's about to take 135 kids to France. So there you are. That's brave, isn't it? In 135, he's got lots of SLT.
That deserves a medal, I think.
I know, but I think the thing is that, if you're teaching Japanese and Mandarin and you feel intimidated by the idea of trips and visits, remember this. I mean, Jessie, who's been tweeting, she's a perfect example of someone who's doing incredible work with music, with all sorts. She's just doing so many things. And, I've worked with incredible Mandarin teachers who did beautiful tea ceremonies within the classroom.
Yes.
with you don't feel like if the language you're teaching is a country that is maybe hard or more challenging to get to, that there won't be help available. Look at what Declan was talking about. There is support out there to get students to more far-flung destinations, but you can actually get around it in other ways, can't you? And do other things. I don't know if Rebecca wanted to add to anything I said actually about the new qualification. I might have missed something out.
It's right. We've got a hand up, so I think so.
So actually, it was just I was conscious of the time, and I didn't want Darren to wrap up without having the opportunity to say we really appreciate that we've had these 3 sessions to get in and get to really get into these topics more deeply and really get to discuss them and share with lots and lots of people. But I just want anybody who's listening to know we don't want this to be the end of the conversation. Please do keep in contact with us. Whether that is, via the Twitter handles you can see us here with today, or via kind of our more official channels, etc. Please do reach out, ask us any questions you want to. Let's have those conversations. And we don't want this to be the end of it. And I couldn't let you wrap up the end of the show without jumping in with that.
No, Beth, I'm glad that you did. I can't believe that we've come to the end of the show already. These 2 hours just fly by. And I've come away with so many great ideas from all of you. So I would like to thank all of our guests this evening for giving up your time. Because 2 hours is a long time for all of us, particularly on a Tuesday evening when we are so close to the summer holidays. Well, actually, I say that as if I didn't announce to everybody on Saturday that I'm already on holiday. But I would like to thank everybody who is here this evening. I'd like to thank Fiona, Rebecca, and Karine. I would like to thank Esme and Declan. I would like to thank Vicky and Alice for being here, because these conversations couldn't happen without you. They couldn't happen without the diverse range of voices that we have in MFL teaching. And I reiterate what Rebecca said. Keep in touch with each other, keep in touch with everybody, because we've all got such good ideas. And I think, if we're going to get the best out of our students, if we're going to show Britain why languages are so important, then we've got to work together to make that happen.
Well said.
Thank you very much. I think with that, I'm going to hand back over to Tom to wrap us up.
Thank you. Huge thanks.
He wasn't expecting that.
Oh, hello. Huge thanks to Pearson MFL for the last 3 amazing shows. What we're going to be doing very soon is publishing a blog on the website linking to all 3 of the shows in the series, so you can go back and listen to all 3 again, and hopefully enjoy the ones that you might have missed. Huge thanks to all the live listeners tonight. There's been a lot of people popping in and out, and some people have been here from start to finish for the last 2 hours. So thank you, massive thank you to you guys. That's absolutely amazing. And massive thanks, Darren, for hosting. Huge TTR team high five, and and we
always a pleasure.
We are still going to be talking about all things languages for the next sort of 2 months on TTR in association with Pearson MFL. So make sure you listen to all the rest of our shows coming up in the next sort of 8 weeks. We've got more to come. So thank you. And and if you're interested in more TTR action, click the listen live button on the website now, because Catherine's already on with a great guest.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom, and thank you to everybody. This has been a great discussion. In case I don't speak to anybody this side of September, have a wonderful summer, but please do speak to me. Please do keep in touch, and let's keep sharing these ideas. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.